Welcome to the AFRA 9th Aviation Stakeholders Convention, taking place today and tomorrow, virtually. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Raphael Kuchi, Consulting Director for Government, Legal, and Industry Affairs, AFRA, and I would be the Master of Ceremonies for today. Distinguished guests, before we actually kickstart the program, I would want to first of all make an acknowledgement of some of the key dignitaries that will be joining us today on this platform. We would have the Secretary General of the African Airlines Association, Mr. Abdul Rahman Ibete. We would also have joining us the Secretary General of the African Civil Aviation Commission, Mr. Tefera Mekong Tefera. We would have the Secretary General of ACI Africa, Ali Tunsi. We would have the Chief Commercial Officer of Ethiopian Airlines, Mr. Esias Woldi Mariam, and we have the IATA Regional Vice President for Africa and Middle East, Mr. Khalid. Then we also would have as our guest of honor, the Minister of Transport of the People's Republic of Ethiopia. Ladies and gentlemen, over the next 2 days, we have lined up very exciting programs for all of us to take stock of where we are and then see how we move forward from where we find ourselves today and into the future. In actual fact, the AFRA Stakeholders Convention is intended to bring us together to share knowledge and information and also network. Fortunately, we have chosen a technology provider, Cvent, which will bring us as close as possible to reality, even though we are conducting this event virtual. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy the sessions as we power through the next 2 days on this important event. Ladies and gentlemen, before I hand over the floor to the Secretary General of AFRA to give us his welcome remarks, I would first of all want to thank our sponsors and our host, Ethiopian Airlines and Collins, for their support of this event and their continued support of AFRA. We look forward to their continued partnership going forward into the future. A few of our housekeeping announcements, ladies and gentlemen. If you are having challenges going through with this technology, please, we have support handy. You would go onto the main site, and then at the bottom left, you would find a button. Click on that green button and send a message, and our technicians are there and they will assist you whatever the problem is. With those few remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I look forward to your cooperation and to our deliberations this afternoon. And with that, I invite the Secretary General of AFRA, Mr. Abdul Rahman Ibete, to take us through with his opening remarks. Thank you very much. Mr. Ibete, you have the floor.
Thank you, Raphael. Her Excellency, Miss Dagmawit Moges, Minister of Transport of the Republic of Ethiopia, Mr. Tiwolde Gebre Mariam, Ethiopian Airlines Group Chief Executive Officer, represented by the Chief Commercial Officer, Mr. Esias Woldi Mariam, Mr. Tefera Mekong, Secretary General of the African Civil Aviation Commission, Mr. Kamil Al-Awadi, IATA Regional Vice President for the Middle East and Africa, Mr. Desiré Balazire, Chief Executive Officer of Congo Airways and Chairman of the African Airlines Association, Chief Executive Officers, Senior Executives of Civil Aviation Authorities, airports and airlines, partners, sponsors and exhibitors, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning or good afternoon. It is a great pleasure to welcome you to this 9th Aviation Stakeholder Convention organized by the African Airlines Association and hosted by Ethiopian Airlines. I wish to express my appreciation to Ethiopian Airlines for hosting this virtual annual convention. I take this occasion to congratulate Ethiopian Airlines for their resilience during the COVID-19 pandemic. I welcome all delegates attending. We believe the theme, Building Blocks for the Air Transport Industry Recovery, will be a unique opportunity for aviation leaders and experts to share views on the future of a very difficult time in our industry. I wish us all fruitful reflections and deliberation during the coming 2 days. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdulrahman Bete, for your warm welcoming remarks. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, I would now invite our next speaker. Our next speaker is the Group Chief Executive Officer of Ethiopian Airlines, Mr. Tewolde Gabriel Mariam, who would be ably represented on this occasion by the Chief Commercial Officer of Ethiopian Airlines, Mr. Esias Wolde Mariam. Because the CEO has other commitments, he is unable to join us this afternoon. So we invite Mr. Wolde Mariam to take us to deliver the opening remarks of the CEO of Ethiopian Airlines.
Excellency, Mr. Abdurrahman Berte, the General Secretary of AFRA, Excellency, Mr. Kamil, IATA Regional VP for Middle East and Africa, Excellency, Mr. Tefera Mekonnen, Secretary General of AFCAC, Her Excellency, Mrs. Dagmait Moges, the Minister of Transport for the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the media partners, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I warmly welcome you to this virtual conference on Africa's air transport industry recovery. Isaias Woldemariam is my name. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Ethiopian Airlines, and I welcome you to this virtual conference, which Ethiopian Airlines is highly delighted to host on behalf of the Group CEO of Ethiopian Airlines, Mr. Tewolde Gabriel. As all of us know, aviation is very important for the socio-economic development of the continent. It creates employment, it connects people and goods, and it fertilizes the economy in all viable ways. And as we know, even pre-COVID, the market share of the African airlines was very much on the minimal. Now, while we are working on the rebuilding of post-COVID aviation on the continent, we need to ensure that African airlines, not anyone to be left behind, for all of them to be growing on market share so that Africa and African airlines to have the deserved share of air traffic. And fighting the pandemic is now very important for airports, governments, and airlines, because we need to assure the biosafety of the traveler for the recovery of aviation. As all of us know, aviation contributes highly for the economy. Instead of building 30,000 kilometers of railways. Only building 3 kilometers of runways can connect people and goods easily. So it is our mission to make this a reality, and Ethiopian Airlines is highly committed for that. And by introducing this virtual meeting, I welcome you all and I wish you a very successful engagement in this virtual meeting. Thank you very much.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on your behalf, I wish to thank Mr. Waldemariam for his warm remarks. It is now my greatest pleasure to invite the IATA Regional Vice President for Africa and the Middle East, Mr. Kamil Al-Awadi. Mr. Kamil Awadi, you have the floor.
Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to address AFRA's 9th Aviation Stakeholders Convention under the theme Building Blocks for the Air Transport Industry Recovery. Prior to the pandemic, aviation contributed $63 billion to the GDP of African economies and supported 7.7 million jobs. The pandemic has negatively impacted over half of these important economic contributors, specifically 32 billion lost to GDP, and has put 5 million jobs at risk. When the COVID crisis hit, there were many uncertainties about the virus and its impact on aviation. As an industry, we focused on maintaining the survival of airlines and the industry as a whole. While many uncertainties still exist, I believe as an industry, we now have a clear, effective, and calculated strategy for a safe restart. The strategy, or what we can call the building blocks for the restart, are categorized into 4 components: financial relief, harmonization and reduction of border protocols, including costs of PCR tests, digitalization of traveler health credentials, lifting travel restrictions, and opening borders. With travel demand down by 76% globally and 70% for Africa, it is imperative to continue to support the industry financially. Although a few African states supported their national airlines with almost $2.6 billion to date, 68% of the relief is in the form of loans, which further burden airlines with additional debt. We must urgently activate the pledges of over $30 billion made by the African Union, as well as African and international development institutions to support airlines and the wider industry. Secondly, safe reopening of borders in a harmonized manner is critical for the restart of aviation in Africa. Different protocols across the continent creates traveler confusion and continues to keep passengers' traffic depressed. In addition, the cost and type of tests remain a restrictive factor across Africa, with PCR tests being the standard test required by the states and costing between $30 and $150 per test across countries in Africa. The costs associated with the PCR tests places African aviation at a significant disadvantage. An increase of 10% of travel costs can reduce the demand at continental level by 15%. The key is harmonization of travel entry and exit requirements across the continent, including the cost and validity period of the PCR tests. Moreover, governments must consider as an alternative testing protocol the rapid diagnostic antigen test in situations where PCR testing is not readily available or results turnaround times are too long. Thirdly, we must embrace the use of digital technology as a way to facilitate and verify passenger health credentials. As more and more governments require verified testing and potentially vaccination proof as a condition of international travel, we are working with the AU and African CDC to synergize the digital platforms for travelers' health credentials and border requirements, the AU Trusted Traveller Platform, and the IATA Travel Pass. The IATA Travel Pass is a digital solution, an application that enables travelers to check country requirements for entry, to store and manage their verified certifications for COVID-19 tests and/or vaccinations, and to share their information directly with governments and airlines. Digital health credentials are more secure and efficient than the current paper processes used to manage health requirements. To support these digital platforms, we call on African governments to continue to provide timely and accurate updates of their health protocols or requirements, and to provide digital COVID-19 test and vaccination certificates for citizens who get tested, plus to accept digital test and vaccination certificates whenever possible as a verifiable health credentials and as a trusted platform for traveler information. Lastly, we need open borders for a successful restart. We commend 50 African governments for already opening their borders to international travel on the basis of pre-departure testing, which is well ahead of other regions of the world. However, travel restrictions imposed globally from other countries on the other, many based on inaccurate information, remains a significant challenge to the aviation industry. We must continue to work with African governments and other regions like the European Union, for example, to ensure governments open their borders to restart the industry. Finally, we must not forget connectivity in Africa and the importance of a single African air transport market, SATAM, and the African Continental Free Trade Area. We are pleased to be continuing our work with AFCAC and other stakeholders to progress the implementation of SATAM. The devastating impact of COVID has been felt by all of us. We must continue our collaboration and cooperation for a safe return of aviation. Our global approach is to work hand in hand with governments by jointly developing roadmaps, seeking to systematically remove restrictions on international air travel. This will take into account factors such as vaccination, rollouts, and the health situation, giving governments the confidence and assurance that they are working with targets that they can achieve in support of safe and sustainable industry restart. And so they can once again reap the social and economical benefits of aviation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Camille, for your warm keynote address. Ladies and gentlemen, we are making progress. We shall continue to our next guest. Our next speaker is the Secretary General of the African Civil Aviation Commission, Mr. Tefera Mekong Tefera. Mr. Tefera, as you all know, is leading Africa in the implementation of SATAM, among other key activities. And we shall be looking forward to his support in ensuring a complete realization of a free African market.
It's a great honor for me, on behalf of the Secretariat of AFCAC, to deliver a keynote speech at this very important forum. I would like to first congratulate the African Airlines Association, AFRA, and Ethiopian Airlines for the excellent arrangements. I also would like to thank all the industry leaders, partners, stakeholders, and colleagues who have worked very hard to prepare for this convention, particularly in conceptualizing its substance. As we are all aware, our industry today is facing the biggest crisis ever in its history. So much traffic has been lost, and yet we are still being faced with enormous uncertainty as to the full recovery of the industry. The challenges we are facing here in Africa require different policy decisions and support, both from government and different stakeholders, in order to play the foundation for sustainable recovery. That's why I'm so happy that this convention has provided us an ideal forum for stakeholders to dialogue, exchange knowledge and experiences for the sector's recovery efforts, and to deliberate on feasible solutions to alleviate the industry challenge. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, it is my belief that the crisis caused by COVID-19 pandemic has provided us an opportunity to turn things around through genuine improvement that will enable us to cope up with and prevail over the massive disruptions. One of the key things we have learned from this crisis is that full liberalization of the air transport industry on the continent through the implementation of the YD and operationalization of the SATM remains a sure path towards recovery that can guarantee a more regionally integrated yet globally connected paradigm, one that balances increased travel on the continent with a gradual, moderate global recovery accompanied by a modest revival in the world economy. As we embark on this gradual recovery process, enhancing aviation safety remains one of AFCAC's key priorities to ensure sustainable development of air transport on the continent. Towards this end, AFCAC, in collaboration with ICAO, has identified projects to strengthen civil aviation authorities' capacity for safety and security oversight and to increase the level of compliance of African states to achieve the world average effective implementation of ICAO standards, amongst others. The project component included AFCIS technical assistance mission to about 25 member states, human capital development, cooperation with some key partners, and development and deployment of IT systems to monitor safety and security programs that will enable AFCAC to play its role of monitoring and reporting of regional targets. In the same manner, with the context of the African Development Bank Institutional Support Program and in collaboration with AFRA, about 24 airline candidates will be provided assistance by IATA for the ESA certification program, while 14 other airlines would be selected for the IOSA certification. While priority will be given to airlines and operators from the SATM member states, non-SATM states airlines and operators who, for the past 3 consecutive years, operated into SATM states will be invited to attend the IOSA and ESA awareness workshop to motivate their states to join SATM. Their participation in this program is to enhance safety as well as increase the chance of achieving the project objectives. I would like to seize this opportunity to call upon you in bringing this issue to your respective states to submit nomination of airlines before the due date. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, recently, AFCAC, in collaboration with ICAO and other partners, organized 2 workshops to build the capacity of member states on economic oversight and regulations, as well as to address issues on proliferation of fees, taxes, and charges on air transport services. The workshop reaffirmed the importance of AFCAC member states' compliance with ICAO policies on charges, fees, and taxes, domestication and application of the relevant provisions of the African Civil Aviation Policy and the Yamoussoukro decision, as well as the need to establish strong economic oversight systems. The workshops called for the harmonization of policies in line with ICAO policies on tax and charges and other non-tariff barriers, and urged government to stimulate air transport demand by removing all government tax on air transport, as well as reduction of passenger charges as excessive and unjustified taxes, charges, and other government-imposed fees and levies on international aviation have negative impact on the industry's competitiveness and national economies. I'm glad to inform you that these recommendations, amongst others, have been submitted for the consideration of the African Union Specialized Ministerial Committee. Distinguished participants, as noted under the financial recommendation in the high-level task force report, access to sufficient financial, human resource, and equipment to support operations, as well as resource mobilization by African states, financial institutions, international partners, and stakeholders contribute to the financial package to competitively reposition and enable African aviation sector to survive as well as recover from the COVID-19 pandemic remains critical. In order to lay a sound foundation for our industry recovery, different institutional and policy decisions by government, financial development institutions, technical partners, and all stakeholders are required, not only to support the swift recovery, but also guarantee African Airlines sustainability. That's why I'm glad to note that this forum will provide opportunity for our financial development institutions and partners to share more light on financial initiatives to support the air transport industry. Distinguished participants, the African Union organized high-level task force adopted by ICAO Council key principles and measures as part of its framework. In addition to the recommendation of the CART, the high-level task force developed 15 complementary African-specific recommendations, which were grouped under financial, technical, sustainability of air transport, communication, policy harmonization, and cooperation. Thus, on the raging issues of vaccine passports, AFCAC is totally aligned with the imperatives that all states of the world implement the ICAO CART Phase 3 recommendations and guidance, which are based on the latest development of the COVID-19, particularly on testing and vaccination. Consequently, I would like to call all member states and stakeholders to support the African common position being spearheaded by the African Union on the issue of vaccine passport being imposed by some states as a prerequisite for air travel. With some positive signs of recovery, especially in countries with high rates of vaccination, sustained global recovery will only be realized with the escalation of vaccination campaigns. So let us be resilient, let us continue to adapt and prevail. Our industry's long-awaited recovery is getting closer and closer. I wish to inform you that recently the Republic of Zambia has signed the solemn commitment to implement the SATM, thereby bringing the total number of SATM states to 35. Therefore, AFCAC wishes to implore all eligible African airlines to test the functionality of the market with these member states that have signed the solemn commitment to unconditionally open up the market to all African airlines, while AFCAC as executing agency of the YD is readily available to assist in the resolution of any challenge that might arise therefrom. In addition, African airlines are further encouraged to enter into cooperative agreements and establish cooperative strategy, among others, in order to establish common mitigation measures against challenges of the industry, including those arising from the outbreak of COVID-19. I equally wish to seize this opportunity to encourage airlines whose states are not yet members to urge to sign on the solemn commitment immediately. Finally, I do sincerely hope that our forum today and tomorrow will provide us with useful insights to contribute to the recovery and resilience of our industry. On this note, I wish to thank you very much for your kind attention, and I hope the forum will be a great success. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tefera, Mekong Tefera, Secretary General of AFCAC. We really appreciate your remarks and trust the African airlines. They are going to test the efficacy of the SATM implementation states by actually launching routes to those markets. Ladies and gentlemen, I am informed that earlier we had challenges with sound to some of our participants. My sincere apologies for that. The challenge has now been fully rectified, and I think you can now all hear me loud and clear. For those who have missed or who could not hear clearly, the welcome remarks by the Group Chief Executive of Ethiopian Airlines and the keynote address by the Regional Vice President Ayata. I would wish to urge them to go to the event site immediately after every event is played. The video is immediately uploaded on the site. So if you go there, you can download it and play it again if you have to. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, we are unable to replay the earlier videos. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is now my privilege and honor on behalf of the African Airlines Association to invite our guest of honor, who is Her Excellency Mrs. Dakmawit Moges, Minister of Transport of the People's Republic of Ethiopia, to deliver his opening speech and officially open this Aviation Stakeholders Convention. Madam, welcome, and you have the floor to give us your remarks.
Hello everyone, welcome to the convention. Africa is the world's second largest and second most populous continent. With a population number of more than 1.3 billion, it is also a continent having more than 55 states, among which nearly 16 of them are landlocked, including the most populous East African nation, Ethiopia. The north-south and west-east stretched distance of the continent, unbalanced socio-economic status of African nation, along with diverse landform features, had made the connectivity a severe challenge in the continent for so long. In this regard, aviation, with no doubt, could be taken as a best option to connect African states within themselves and as well as with other states in the world. Although Africa is very accessible as far as geography is concerned, yet it is tough to move across nations via air transport. Some neighboring states in Africa are still far apart from each other as far as aviation connection is concerned. For some Africans, it needs lots of transits in various locations of the continent to move within and outside. And still, lots of Africans use foreign airliners to move from place to place instead of using the continent-based airliners. Air connectivity in Africa is still infantile, yet different data sources indicate that air transportation in Africa supports more than 7 million jobs and contributes around 60 to 70 billion USD of the GDP of the continent. Here in Ethiopia alone, our prestigious airline is able to create more than 16,000 employment, with soaring manpower requirement along with its wing expansion both in terms of passenger and cargo services. According to different studies, although Africa is the second most populous continent, rate of air transport is not more than from 2 to 3% from the world's total, which significantly shows the low penetration of aviation industry in the continent. Although Africa is a big landmass with over 30 million square kilometers of area, yet it has not only more than 350 airports, which accounts less than 10% of the world's total. Although Africa has more than 55 nations, it has less than 200 airliners operating across nearly 15% of the world's total. Despite these low figures, the COVID-19 pandemic is believed to worsen the situation of the aviation industry of our continent. African airliners have registered low passenger volumes since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the commercial aviation industry's rebound from COVID-19 in Africa could take several years. Yet it's good to heavily focus on the post-pandemic fast recovery of the airline industry, and better to come up with additional benefits of the aviation sector to strengthen the continent's overall GDP. We have been constantly told that the aviation industry had faced the most challenging time due to COVID-19 pandemic and its widespread effect on passengers and goods movement. We know that the 2021 itself will also be a challenging year, as many airliners are on the verge of bankruptcy throughout the world, let alone in our continent, Africa. What I suggest during this event is to discuss more on the solutions and long-term options that successfully drive the airline industry. And in this regard, I would like to talk about Ethiopian Airlines and its cope-up mechanisms that I might think are relevant for other African airliners. Since the outbreak of this pandemic, Ethiopian Airlines has been implementing a series of interventions by its own sake and in cooperation with other National Facilitation Committee stakeholders, comprising of the airliner, Ethiopian Public Health Institute, Airport and Immigration, Airport Customs, Airport Security, Federal Police Commission, the Civil Aviation Organization, and our ministry itself. In the first months of the pandemic, the airliner had lost significant amount of revenue due to travel restriction and halt of passenger services. The airliner was forced to cut almost all its international flights, but was able to regain its business position, shifting to other modes of income generation, which includes expansion of cargo operation, maintenance and repair works, and revenue from hotel business ventures, and others. Among the major interventions that gave the airliner to be able and stand the stormy weather of the COVID-19 pandemic may include, least among the most, the containment efforts, which urge customers to use digital options to minimize physical interaction and keep social distancing is the major ones as far as safety of its customers is concerned. The other great achievement of this airliner as far as taking care of its customers is along with its subsidiary group members. It has managed to complete the new passenger terminal at Addis Ababa International Airport with greatest emphasis on biosecurity and biosafety. The new terminal is equipped with 60 check-in counters and 30 self-check-in kiosks. There are also 10 spots for self-bag dropping services and 16 immigration counters. And this terminal is probably the first terminal completed after COVID-19, giving due attention to efforts aimed at preventing the spread of harmful organisms through limiting contacts between passengers. And as of now, the airliner is also announcing that it will be trailing IATA's Travel Pass, a digital health passport that will make that verification of COVID-19 tests and vaccination easier for the carrier. Ethiopian Airlines is now the first African carrier to run through a test of mobile app, joining other airliners such as Emirates, Singapore Airlines, and others. In addition, Ethiopian Airlines Group, African leading airliner, has also announced that it has launched a high-end COVID-19 testing laboratory at its main hub and the continent's busiest airport, Addis Ababa International Airport. The testing center is open to revitalize the passenger business by creating seamless travel experiencing that includes COVID-19 testing to passengers that are departing or transiting via Addis Ababa. The state-of-the-art COVID-19 testing lab is equipped with cutting-edge technologies to provide quick and accurate testing for passengers. Currently, the lab has a capacity to carry out 1,000 COVID-19 tests a day with a potential to grow to further expansion. Ethiopian Airlines has a strategic business unit comprising of maintenance and repair and overhaul, MRO, Aviation Academy, ground handling, cargo services, passenger services, and the Skylight Hotel business. During the pandemic, the airliner have managed to utilize and make the best of its strategic business units, as there is a great quote which says, "Don't put all your eggs in one single basket," as similar as that of the airline had done tremendous work through diversifying its business, which made it stand still the impact of the pandemic, which most airliners were not able to withstand. The cargo operation itself alone has shown a glimmer of hope that Ethiopia could become Africa's largest cargo hub, as Ethiopia has managed to utilize all its dedicated flight planes and even converting some of its passenger aircrafts into that of cargo planes. The airliner has managed to bring huge income through this cargo venture alone. Besides that, repairing the foreign airliners' planes has also contributed its significant share of additional revenue. The Aviation Training Academy and the hotel business has their own input that helped their airliner to withstand the pandemic's challenge. Overall, the experience and success result of Ethiopian Airlines could give lots of lessons to other airliners in Africa. But above all, what I would like to stress is African aviation providers should focus on service diversification, reduction or avoidance of government intervention, construction of basic facilities such as cargo hubs, cold chain warehouses, liberalization of aviation industries, bringing conducive legal frameworks and institutional frameworks for the general aviation services, and above all, linking the aviation sector with sustainable economic modes such as tourism, manufacturing, agriculture, mining, and other important sectors that would play significant roles in supporting the GDP of the continent. For instance, as Africa is a big continent with varied natural and socio-cultural heritage and tourism destinations, air travel is believed to facilitate a sustainable amount of tourism growth and its related benefits in Africa. In Ethiopia, for instance, as we have envisioning to boost the tourism sector, and as we expect more than 48 million passengers to access the country, both as a transit and direct destination, we believe this passenger increment would heavily support the tourism sector and this simultaneously multiply economic activities. In relation to linking the aviation sector with the tourist destinations, the African states should also come in the same position to work together and promote their tourism potential for the sake of common benefit. The other aspect which I would like to stress during this event is, as Africa is a rich resource of fresh products such as fruits, vegetables, and other foodstuffs, the aviation sector should play a vital role as far as connecting the continent with the rich world market. During the COVID pandemic, we had observed a significant boost of agricultural product export from African states to the rest of the world. We believe the aviation sector of the continent, especially while improving its cargo logistic services, would significantly boost the post-COVID pandemic recovery and future GDP contribution to the continent's economy. In conclusion, the building blocks for the air transport industry recovery in Africa should encompass broad views relating to current challenges and coping mechanisms, as well as long-term scenario setting and correlating of the sector with other related sectors to yield the best result and further support the continent's GDP in the long run. I wish you all a great discussion, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Her Excellency Mrs. Dekmawit Moges, Minister of Transport of the People's Republic of Ethiopia, for those warm and exciting opening remarks. And thank you also for wishing us well as we move to the next stage of our program. We also want to thank all our previous speakers during this opening session for your remarks.